Number 8.
When I was about 18, I worked as a nursing assistant on a surgical floor. We got a range of patients that varied from gallbladders to knee replacements. I worked with another assistant and we split the floor in half. She got one hallway and I got the other. She went on break, so I responded to the call lights in both halls. One of her patients was wrung out, so I went to help. The lady's son stepped out while I assisted her to the bedside. I came out and told him I was done and he could go back in. Instead, he chose to talk to me. We exchanged some small talk and he went back into the room when his mother called for him. The other assistant came back and I continued working. I went to chart at the nurse's station and the son came out and began chatting with me again. I didn't think much of it. It was the middle of the night, nothing good was on TV at this time, and I assumed that he was just bored. I got up to attend my patients and he followed me, asking lots of questions like how old I was, if I was going to school, how long I'd worked here. He even waited outside patients' rooms till I came out. I should have mentioned earlier that this guy did not have that usual creeper vibe. He was a clean-cut guy, perhaps in his late 20s. He was charming and funny. I guess his appearance delayed my creeper sense, and I dismissed his behavior as being socially awkward. He continued to follow me and talk to me, and I tried to drop subtle hints that I had a boyfriend, although I didn't actually. Towards the end of my shift, he became a little more aggressive. He told me, "Well, I guess I'll just have to kill him," referring to the boyfriend I spoke about. He said it with a laugh and then told me that he would walk me to my car when my shift was over. He then left to check on his mother. At this point, I was creeped out. It was the end of the shift and we gave report to the day shift assistants. I had told my co-worker what had happened with the son, so she checked the hallway before we left and we took a little known path to the parking garage. I went to bed when I got home, and around noon, the day shift charge nurse, she called me. She told me not to come in. She said the son had been asking about me. He asked when I worked, what my real name was, and more personal info. When she wouldn't tell him, he asked other nurses. His mum was going home that day, she said, so I could probably come back tomorrow. Tomorrow came and my manager called. She told me to stay home the rest of the week. The son had sent flowers to the floor and had called every floor asking about me and when I worked. She said she didn't feel like it was safe for me to come back. Eventually, he quit calling and I came back to work. About 3 months later, I was watching the news, and he had been arrested for rape and murder.
Number 7.
Recently, I got pulled over by a cop in my current Texan town and let off with a warning. My infraction? Not signaling a lane change. In case, I guess it's relevant. So, whatever, we talk. He's attractive, friendly enough, and I crack jokes and he does the same. I did my innocent white girl act to get out of the ticket. It works, and he asked for my information to fill out the warning citation. I go on my way, and he follows me to my destination, which is my friend's house down the street. Weird, but maybe he thought that I'd been drinking or something, so I promptly forgot about it. That is, only to have him text and ask me out the next day, using the phone number he lifted off of my warning citation. I have been in a relationship for 4 years, and obviously I'm not interested, so I ignore it. And then I just kind of get mad. I already don't really like cops, and obtaining my number like that seems shitty and is an abuse of power, so I reported him. I showed them the text, except, not unsurprisingly, his text used language implying that I gave my number to him in the first place. And, even less surprisingly, that was his story when he was asked about it. So yeah, nothing ever came from it. Probably not this cowboy's first rodeo, and he seemingly covered his ass, which upset me more. Which brings me to the present. I see him parked on my street about once a week. 2 days ago, I got into my car only to have it start shaking a block from my house, and when I pulled over, one of my lug nuts was missing and the others, they'd been loosened. My wheel was about to come off. This made me realize that I need to be more vigilant about changing up my routine. I saw the cop parked on my street on my way home from the late shift at work the previous night. 9 times out of 10, I go shower and let my dog out. Then I go to my friends to crack a beer and do some homework for a few hours before bed. The other night though, my friend picked me up instead. If this cop is watching me and trying to sabotage my car, he would have known I'd only make it halfway down the road before breaking down, and then he would have swooped in to help. Fortunately, I deviated away from the norm and didn't notice it or drive my car until 5 p.m. the following day. I know I sound paranoid as fuck, but I'm pretty sure I might be being stalked or fucked with by a cop I rejected and reported. And I have absolutely no evidence yet. I already ordered dash cams and another one for outside my house, but I know that no one at the PD here would believe me, even if it were true.
Number 6.
Being the child of a police officer, I was expected to act a certain way. I was either going to be some goody two-shoes who never got in trouble, or some little brat who got away with too much because daddy was always bailing me out. I was the former, which caused me a lot of problems. I was straight-laced for most of my life. I never smoked, only tried alcohol when I turned 21, only had 1 speeding ticket, and never even got sent to the principal's office. However, the innocence I supposedly possessed, it was a cover for a lot of secrets I held. I dated a man that was 3 years older than me, Kale. Kale was 18 when we started dating, but mentally 14 or 15, to be honest. Even to this day, I still surprise people when I tell them I'm only 21. However, me dating Kale was something that got me and him into a lot of trouble, and not for the reasons you're thinking. Kale had been living with his parents, never moved out on his own. I was 19 at the time and helping him look for other places to live. He was 22 or 23 at the time. I told him that I would keep a lookout. It just so happened that my friend Sierra needed a roommate to support her and her boyfriend, Tyler. Tyler was 10 years older than both of us, and her parents loathed him. Despite Sierra being the same age as me, she already had 1 child, and another one on the way. She was 16 when she had her first child. Tyler was the father. It wasn't until I saw them on my way home from school one day that I even thought about them. I walked to get to the bus stop to get to the college as I didn't have my license or a car yet. They seemed really happy and were very inviting. Sierra was a friend from school, so I didn't see a problem in stopping to chat. Even though Tyler had only met me that day, he was already hinting that he wanted me to move in with them and be their roommate because with the new baby coming, they wanted to be sure that they could make ends meet. Seeing this as a brilliant idea, I called up Kale and told him about it. Kale was a little wary, so I had them arranged to meet. I will preface this and say I was very naive about this and wanted what I thought was best for Kale, but things went bad, fast. After only a month, Kale was set to move in. After Kale had moved in, Tyler changed. He suddenly became very aggressive toward Kale, at one point lighting his hand on fire. Kale wasn't harmed, but he lost a lot of arm hair. He was constantly making fun of him and became very sexual towards Sierra when Kale was in the room. When I came over, he would make passes at me and asked very prying questions about our sex life. The straw that broke the camel's back was when Sierra and Tyler got into a very loud shouting match, and he shoved her so that she landed on her stomach. The baby was fine, but when I went to help her up, I realized just how many marks she had on her. I didn't call the police that night because Sierra was adamant that I didn't. She said that she still loved him and she couldn't take care of the babies without him. She had grown up without a father and wouldn't let her children do the same. Kale and I agreed that he needed to get out of the house. He started to make plans to pack, and we were going to try and sneak it all out when Tyler wasn't home. But Tyler seemed to be catching on and asked if I wanted to move in as well, seeing all the boxes. Not wanting to make him mad, I just remained silent. This was another mistake. He took my silence as a yes and started to ask me if I was moving in. He then got more and more angry the less and less I responded to him. He got more and more aggressive, calling and texting me. When I told him that I was at work, he demanded to know my schedule so I could talk with him. He kept bringing up the unborn baby and how he needed some help with money. I finally told him and Sierra that I would never live with them, and they were on their own. Kale had finally gotten everything together and just needed a truck to move it all. Shit hit the fan the next morning. I got some text messages from Kale telling me about how Tyler and Sierra were talking about beating the shit out of me and to take a different way to school that morning. I still hadn't told my parents about this because I didn't want Sierra or Kale to get in trouble for what Tyler was doing. I should have called the police then, but I figured, what's going to happen on a quick walk to school, right? I started my walk. It was short, only 1.5 miles. However, about halfway through, I saw Tyler sitting on the side of the road, waiting. I kept walking, not turning my head to even acknowledge him. He shouted after me, following. We were on the sidewalk of a very busy highway, so if he came up to me, there would be plenty of witnesses. I think that's the only reason he didn't get closer to me. Then I heard, "Beat the shit out of you." Something in me snapped. I turned around and stopped, staring at him. "You do realize my dad's a cop, right?" He stopped, then rolled his eyes.
"Well, Sierra's uncle is a cop, and he's higher ranking than your dad. I'll shoot you, and I'll shoot your dad. I know where you live, where you go to school, and how you get there, and where you work. So you try and call the cops, bitch. I'll get to you before they get to me."
At that point, I turned around, white-knuckled on my bag. I ducked into the nearby fast food restaurant that Kale worked at. I called the police, my hands shaking the entire time. I stayed in the restaurant until the cop car came. Tyler was arrested a few hours later. I received a huge barrage of text messages from Sierra with her saying that she would never forgive me and how could I, etc. I didn't back down, and the charges, they went through. Tyler pled guilty and I got an order of protection against him. A piece of paper, it doesn't really do anything, but it's comforting to know that it's in writing that he can't be near me anymore. This is the first and only time I've called the police, and I hope that I never have to do it again.
Number 5.
This is a little story about a creep who thought that he had all the power in the world, a creep who probably had a horrific childhood, but a creep nonetheless. I first befriended this creep online back in 2011, Facebook of course. We had mutual friends I trusted, so I assumed that he was a cool guy. Well, that was a terrible assumption to make about a stranger, whether they are mutual friends or not, but I was a naive 18-year-old girl. His name was Denny. I thought he was a cool guy at first. He had an awesome taste in music and shared a lot of great songs with me. He was also incredibly inappropriately hilarious. He was full of jokes and bizarre stories, and I soon grew to love talking to him. He never asked if I had a boyfriend. I assumed that he knew I did. After all, we were Facebook friends now, and there were pictures of my boyfriend everywhere. And it's not like I kept my relationship status hidden. It was right there for all to see. But I guess that he didn't know. One day, in October, he decided to tell me about how he felt about me. He recited a poem that he'd written, comparing me to a beautifully and elegantly handcrafted tapestry. Keep in mind, I've never even met the guy, and we'd only been talking for a month or so. I responded with something along the lines of, Wow, I wish my boyfriend said stuff like that. He got angry. So angry. He asked me how I could have let him on like this. He asked me how I could do this to him. He told me that he'd opened his heart to me, and he begged and pleaded. Supposedly, he even cried. I was beyond puzzled. I decided to give him some space, and it worked for a few days. But he eventually messaged me again. He may have apologized, but honestly, I can't remember that exact conversation. I do know that things returned to normal though, and he became silly and fun again. At this point, I had his Skype and he had mine. I would talk to him there sometimes, but I never used the camera. I didn't feel comfortable with it. Actually, I hated using the camera with anyone. I told him that when he started to beg me to use it, but he didn't relent. Still, I kept making excuses. But Denny, he wasn't having it. He got more aggressive, and then he got sexual. He told me to Skype naked with him. Time after time, I told him no. Eventually, I blocked him on Skype, but ended up receiving dozens of angry messages on AIM. I don't exactly remember what he said, though I do have screenshots of all of it on an external hard drive somewhere. I remember it being hateful and absolutely insane, and there was some stuff about me being a really awful friend as well. Before long, he told me that he was an excellent hacker. He told me that he had a slew of hacker friends as well. He told me that he could change my college grades and make me fail. And he told me that he would make my life a living hell. I didn't necessarily believe it all, but I did believe that he would do something. Despite these negative confrontations, he still had periods of silliness. During these periods, things were normal. I felt safe, and to an extent, I tried to keep him happy. I wanted to stay in his good graces, because I really did believe that he would attempt to tarnish my reputation otherwise. Before long though, he started giving me ultimatums.
Either you get on Skype with me, or things will get very bad for you. I can tell your boyfriend you're cheating on him.
I eventually asked our mutual friends about him. They said he was violent, dangerous, and twisted. And even better, he lived mere minutes away from the college we attended in Pennsylvania. Every day, I started to get more panicked about going to school. While on campus, I'd look around for guys that looked like him, guys with long red hair and beards, and I'd be wary of anyone who even slightly resembled him. At this point, I was honestly convinced that he'd just show up and try to find me. I blocked him on AIM, and I made a new Skype. I knew that this would infuriate him, and it did. I received another batch of messages on Facebook about how I needed to learn to treat people better. I told him I was uncomfortable with what he was asking of me. He responded with something along the lines of,
"Fine, you've chosen your fate."
I blocked him on Facebook. I'd had enough of him terrorizing me, but I should have known that it wouldn't have been the last time I'd hear from him. At the end of November, I received 3 Facebook messages from someone named Adam Knowing. Whoever he was, he just joined Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and he had no friends or content. The messages read as follows. November 27th, 2011.
You've been warned repeatedly, and you are now being served notice.
November 29th, 2011.
I believe that this is your last warning, and that you've been informed of your behavioral issues. The situation will change before the start of next weekend, or action will be taken.
November 30th, 2011.
So you attend college, right? And your grades are passing? Not for long. You were warned on how to treat him and how you are to act. You've got until this weekend to correct this behavior, or life becomes a very difficult thing. You should never treat someone who has a life like this the way that you do.
To this day, I'm not sure who Adam Knowing was. It could have been Danny, or it could have been one of his low-life hacker friends. Either way, I was terrified at the time. Against my better judgment, I unblocked Danny on Facebook. By now, my boyfriend was aware of the situation, and he suggested I contacted the police if anything got any worse. Maybe I should have, but Danny hadn't officially done anything to me. What could they do? Still, I took screenshots of all of his screen names. I saved our chat logs on AIM. I took screenshots of all of his threatening messages. I saved it all to a folder just in case I needed evidence. Danny's nonsense continued right through Christmas. Some days he'd be sweet and funny. Others, he was back to being angry and pressuring. I promised him a Skype session to calm him down, but I kept using my schoolwork as an excuse to delay it. Shortly after Christmas, I blocked him again on all accounts. I decided that I would deal with whatever repercussions that came with it. If I did end up getting hacked, at least I had the evidence, right? A couple of weeks went by, and nothing happened. Then, I received a Facebook message from another account I didn't recognize. I don't remember this one, but I do remember the message.
After careful consideration, you're being let go. You may not want to do the respectful thing and thank the one you have wronged. It is thanks to his compassion that you are being forgiven so easily.
I blocked the account immediately. In January of 2012, something magical happened. I woke up one morning to the news that Danny had been arrested. The charges? Possession and distribution of child pornography. A bunch of his creepy friends had been arrested with him, having been involved as well. In 2013, Danny was indicted. He's looking at up to 60 years, which will make him almost 90 when he gets out. Even if he's released early, he'll be supervised for the rest of his life. I'm not sure if I can share the link to the news story, but it's online. I guess being a creep catches up with you eventually.
Number 4.
One night, my mum took my siblings and I to a Chinese buffet, and we had an awesome time. We joked while we ate our food. We impersonated our mother with her hilarious accent when she spoke English and shared photos. During that night, we really believed that nothing could go wrong, but boy, were we in for it. We walked home after paying, and I helped decipher what exactly our fortune cookies meant. We unlocked the door and we walked up the stairs, giggling all the way. I had my little sister with me, and we just kept joking around until we reached the room attached to our living room, where we stopped dead cold. She shook my arm. "Someone was here, I know it." She stared at one specific spot, the bunk bed. She pointed at it, well, a corner of it, where the sheet had been slightly overturned. "That wasn't like that when we left." I rolled my eyes at her. "Mummy probably accidentally messed up the covers. You weren't the last person in this room right before we left." She kept shaking my arm, sure of herself that something was wrong. She kept looking around the room for any other signs and found the broomstick. She pointed at it too. "Okay, I didn't leave that there." And that's when I got confused. Yeah, anybody could have moved it, but earlier in the day we had cleaned up the entire house. Once we were done, we put our cleaning supplies away in our closet by the kitchen. This room was a hallway and 2 rooms away from that closet. I dragged my little sister with a bit of skepticism, telling her that she was probably a bit paranoid, and guided her to our bedroom, which we shared. I opened the door, walking in first. I stopped dead cold in my doorway, blocking my little sister from seeing anything inside. I pushed her back and I told her to call our mum. When she left, I walked inside. Our window had been smashed open and there was a brick on our cabinet. Shattered glass lay on the floor and some trailed away from the window, like trapped glass fell off the intruder's shoes. My mum came rushing in and she took in everything with a gasp. She ushered my sister and I out and she told my 2 other siblings to search the house for anything missing. A few minutes later and the police are at our house. My mum's spare purse full of documents are missing, as well as a knife, some of our IDs from the YMCA and some of my mother's undergarments. The suspect? My mother's boyfriend, whom she had an argument and broke up with. The police soon put out a search for him, first at his home, but he's not there, so they start looking around the area. Afterwards, my mother calls up one of her friends to come and keep us company because we were all fairly shaken up. V, as we all call her, brought her kids along and we all started to watch movies while they chatted quietly about what had happened. After a few hours, V got up to use the bathroom when she heard a noise by my oldest sister's room. Mind you, our entire house was dark because we turned out all the lights by police orders, so she was practically blind the entire time. She walked into my sister's room but couldn't find anything out of the ordinary until she heard the noise again. It was coming from the closet. She opens it, almost screaming when she sees that it's my mum's ex. He quietly asks her for his fucking set of pants that he left in the bathroom, to which she does in total shock, telling him to get the fuck out of there. After he does, she tells my mother, where she calls the cops again to tell them that he was still in our house the entire time. It turns out that he was probably taking a whiz right before we came home and just panicked, choosing to hide in my sister's closet until he could hightail it out of there. The police eventually caught him, but I still refrained from using that bedroom until we had our window fixed. My mother got a restraining order against him, but she never got her stuff back. I've completely forgotten what he looked like, but my siblings sometimes see him when we go out shopping, thankfully staying very far away from us.
Number 3.
This happened back when our family moved to our new house in 2001. I was 8 years old and my sister was 10. Since we had just moved, my mum really wanted some new furniture to make our new home look nice. We weren't well off in the first place, but it was our first real home. We drove to a little value furniture shop that had a bunch of things to choose from. Of course, my sister and I, being typical siblings, we were joking around with each other. She called me an ugly freak and I told her that her face was fat, just normal things. Unfortunately, my mum couldn't find anything that she liked, so we left empty-handed. When we got into the car, she wanted to go to the grocery store to pick up a few things so the trip wasn't a total waste. My sister and I noticed a brown car following us, turning every corner, making every light, etc. We pointed it out to our mum and she just blew it off. Don't worry about it, guys. So we dropped it too. We were young and we completely forgot about it when we went to the general store and grabbed our snacks. Again we got into the car and left for home, and again the brown car started following us. Mum was getting a bit worried since we lived in another town 20 miles away. She told us that it had to be someone that we knew. We had relatives living in the town, just not anyone we were really close to. And like they did before, they copied our route. The closer we were to home, the more paranoid my mother became, and in turn fueled our fear. She told us to copy the license plate, but tried to assure us that it was probably our cousin Jessica or something. When we parked in our driveway, the car parked behind us, the engine still running. Our mum ordered us to stay in the car while she went to talk with our cousin. My sister and I watched from the rear window as my mum went to speak with her. After a few minutes, we heard the woman from the car yelling, gesturing us to inside the car and then back to my mother. She peeled out of the driveway, almost running over my mother's feet. A few seconds later, my mum was crying hysterically and ordered us to get into the house. She pushed us into our room and spoke to our dad, even though we could hear everything. Apparently, the woman had thought that we were insulting her while we were in the furniture store and threatened us. She had said that she would throw nails in our driveway and poison our dogs outside. She insisted that my mother beat us for talking to a complete stranger in such a way, and if she had the chance, she'd break our little fucking necks if she heard us talking about her again. My dad wasn't very happy that my mum brought her all the way to the house, but stated it probably wasn't a big deal. The next day, my sister and we were walking to our bus stop when we saw the brown car parked across the street from our house. My sister immediately ran back inside to tell our dad, and he walked us to the bus stop and waited until we were safely on the bus. My mum wanted to do something about it, but my dad was against it. He assumed that the police wouldn't do anything since they were just threats. So the creepy, stalkerish behavior continued without interference. She began showing up every morning, watching us as we waited for the bus, but she was coming onto our property too to make her presence known. My mum found a bottle of antifreeze near the dog's fenced-in area. It hadn't been opened, but we were told to bring in their bowls every night just in case. Food wraps and half-empty cups of soda were thrown onto our lawn. The air valve caps and lug nuts on our tyres went missing, and one of our outside cats actually died, but we couldn't pinpoint what happened. Then, my older brother did something really stupid. My dad was tired of walking us to the bus stop, so he asked my older brother to do it. Spotting the car in its typical spot, he decided the smart thing to do was to throw up his middle finger at her. This totally fucked her up. She ran out of the car cursing and yelling at us. She said that we were crazy and needed to fucking learn our place as children. She was screaming and threatening to beat us and spitting at us. I was bawling my eyes out, and my brother had picked me up because I just couldn't move. We stayed home that day, and my mum, she finally called the police. We gave them her license plate number, and they said that they would visit her in a day or two. My mum didn't tell me much, but I know that they confronted her about it. She went on a total rant about how kids are just dirty bastards, and she'd kill every last one if she could. They didn't arrest her, but a few days later, the police called my mum to inform us that the lady, she was admitted to a psych ward. After that, there were no more details, but we never heard from her again.
Number 2.
So, a bit about me first. I'm still fairly new to my new city, big city in Texas, and I have a nice boyfriend, decent job, and several nice friends. I don't make enemies easily. I am polite to everyone, and am a generally outgoing person. For several months now, I've had that feeling. You know the one, where you feel like you're being watched. It had gotten so bad that I got a dog, because as much as I love my cat, he doesn't really provide me with any sort of protection or comfort. The first major incident happened 3 weeks ago when my car was broken into at work. This actually happens sometimes at my work, so while I was upset, I wrote it off as just a normal vandalism. But the more I went through my car the next day, the weirder it became. They had pulled my GPS out of the pocket attached to the passenger seat, looked at it, then threw it back on the seat. I had several very pricey coach purses hidden underneath the seat, and they pulled them out but didn't take them. In fact, the only thing that was missing was an old red bra that was in a bag with some other random clothes that had been thrown back there ages ago. Several days later, I noticed a long scratch running the length of my passenger car door. Originally, I thought I had maybe scratched it somehow, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that somebody must have keyed it because I'm almost never on that side of the car. A week or so later, I went to check my mail, which I rarely do, and when I opened my mailbox, my rent reminder check I get every month had already been opened. And I don't mean maybe they didn't seal it properly. I mean the top was torn off and the reminder was hanging out of it. A few nights later, I woke up to someone at my door at 2 a.m. My dog, Nova, was growling and I heard someone trying to turn the handle at my front door and scratching at it. Nova went batshit crazy and started barking, which woke me up even more. I was frozen, but Nova kept barking and that seemed to scare them off. I didn't report it to the complex. Stupid, I know. I should also mention that a little bit before this, my complex had sent out an email saying that there was suspicious activity going on around the complex, but they were being extra watchful. At this point, I was always feeling uneasy when I took Nova out for walks at trails behind my complex, and never felt really secure when I was at my apartment. So I had been staying with my boyfriend for a week or so. I was still holding out hope that everything was just bad luck and kind of coincidental, and this all brings me to several days ago. I had to get to work an hour or so early, and I was the only car in the parking lot. About an hour later, I got a phone call from a co-worker saying that my car had been broken into again. Since it had happened before, I was able to handle the situation pretty quickly, and I called the cops and called insurance, etc. The cops showed up and I go out to meet them. I told them nothing was taken and that this was the second time that this has happened in a month. They look at each other and ask if anything was taken the first time, so I told them that only my red bra was missing. They point out the key marks and I tell them that that happened around the same time. The first cop points out more key slashes that weren't there before and fully wrapped around the back of the car and over my taillights to the other side. They then start asking me questions.
Do you have an angry ex-boyfriend? Do you know if someone is angry at you? These are not normal break and enters. Has anything else weird happened? Anything at all?
I'm trying not to freak out and tell them about all of the experiences I've had over the past few months, at which point they look at each other again, and Cop 2 says,
I don't want you to freak out, but I think you should buy some mace, a knife, or a gun for protection. There is obviously someone who is out to hurt you.
They just kind of leave it at that and leave. I'm freaking out and I call my boss, who's also my uncle's girlfriend, and I tell her what they said. She said that she'd be here in 15 minutes and we'd talk. I filled her in on everything, and she tells me that these are all signs that I have a stalker, a legitimate stalker who is out to get me. She used to be a news anchor and has had stalkers before and tells me that these are warning signs that he or she is escalating. So, to wrap up, I'm staying with my boyfriend. My boss or auntie has me scheduled to only work when other people are there. I am walked to and from my car by a male co-worker every morning and night, and I can't leave during the day and am to call the cops if anything makes me uncomfortable. My parents are freaking out and really worried and want me to move back to Boston. Update. When I went out to walk my dog this morning, I noticed new key marks on my door. They were definitely not there yesterday. Update. I stayed in my apartment for the first time in a week yesterday. The only reason I did was because my complex was doing some random inspections and I really needed to clean in case I was selected. When I left this morning, I had all my lights turned off, but when I came by during my work break, my bedroom and bathroom lights, they were on. Since it was inspection day, I called the complex and asked if they had been in my apartment for inspection and could have left the lights on. It turns out they hadn't been to inspect my apartment, which means someone else was in here while I was at work. I called the cops and they added this incident to my case file.
Number 1.
Before I begin, let me apologize preemptively for being a bit sparse on detail. This isn't actually my story. This one was told to me by my aunt one Memorial Day when I was visiting up north for a family reunion. Back in the late 90s, very early 2000s, my aunt worked in an office. It was a pretty ordinary workplace with cubicles, water cooler chatter, and copy machine jams. The guy in the cubicle next to her, Thomas, however, was anything but ordinary. He was the weird guy at this place. You know the type. The guy everyone kind of feels on edge around. The guy that all his co-workers think has the capacity to go postal one day. The guy no one really wants to spend too much time with alone. Being his cubicle mate, my aunt had to put up with a lot of his oddities. Sometimes, he'd peek over the divider at her and just stare. Oftentimes, he'd make strange comments about female co-workers' appearances. One thing that really struck her as odd was often she'd hear him whimpering, as if he was quietly weeping on the other side. Nothing super threatening, but enough to make her feel a tad ill at ease around him. One day, she notices Thomas is gone and his cubicle is cleared out, and the water cooler chatter picks up. it's revealed that Thomas has been axed, charged, and convicted for making threatening phone calls to a couple of female co-workers, one including a rape threat. Not only that, but hidden surveillance cameras during the stealthy investigation of these allegations, they had revealed that the strange whimpering my aunt had heard from Thomas was not from him crying, but from him masturbating in his cubicle. He is subsequently sentenced to 75 days in prison with 3 years parole. My aunt thinks good riddance and moves on with her life. A few years pass by and my aunt is watching the news one night when something catches her attention. Thomas has apparently been arrested again, this time upon investigation of the murder of a 9-year-old girl in Tahoe. Once proceedings begin and media attention was being garnered, she was overwhelmed by an influx of new information about Thomas. It turned out that the bad vibes everyone at the office felt were for good reason. Thomas was one sick fuck, much worse than they'd once thought. Trials had brought to attention that Thomas had been sexually abusing his son, TJ, since he was 5 or 6 years old. As TJ got older, Thomas got him to bring home young girls for him to molest regularly, including TJ's own girlfriends. Eventually, Thomas had dragged TJ so far into his depravity that this culminated in TJ luring a 9-year-old girl into their apartment, where his father brutally raped and murdered her. TJ even covered for his father when the girl's parents came searching for her, as she lay tied up in the back bedroom before going off to dump her lifeless body down an embankment alongside the highway. Tragically, a very bright young girl had to die for him to finally be caught, but Thomas was convicted and furthermore died in prison in 2001. No one will ever have the misfortune of meeting him again. G'day mates, it's B-Buster here. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video guys. Thanks again to the Hive members that bravely shared their stories for us all here, and I hope you're all doing really well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. And as always, keep them coming guys, as this channel relies upon your stories to continue. Also, please do me a favor and just state in your email what your story is about in the description, and also provide me with a short written statement of consent, just so that I can be above board with everything. And also remember to tell me in the email if you would like to remain anonymous, and please change any names if you don't want particular names to be shared. As always guys, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates throughout the week. You can also catch me on my second channel, all of which have links in the description below. Thanks again for always tuning in guys, for all the love and support, and I'll see you mates in the next one.